Secession is back in the news and is a hot topic right now in a couple of different places. I'll tell you all about it right here. Also, what's in the news with stories on voluntary charity, forced allergies, violent cop facing justice, cops dismissed, and UN child brainwashing. And finally, a Muh Roads segment on a man who is building a road to his business by himself without seeking any permission from the government. This episode is brought to you by ZenCash, a cryptocurrency that infuses privacy, anonymity, and security done right. Also brought to you by NordVPN, the fastest, easiest to use service to protect your online presence that I've ever seen, and I use it every single day.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the state whose oldest continuous European settlement is Dover, which dates all the way back to 1623. This is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at TheLavaFlowPod. This is episode 88, Secession is Hot. And it's Thursday, April 19th, 2018, when there have already been more than 376 people killed by police this year. And the United States debt clock shows us at $21,138,150,000,000 in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. You know, we've talked about secession on this show several times in the past, but it's heating up in a couple of places right now, so I wanted to make sure that I touched on those topics. This is a deeply personal topic for me because I believe in individual sovereignty, and I believe that any individual should be able to secede from any organization or any government at any time. That is true voluntaryism. As you may know, I'm a regional captain and a monthly donor to the Foundation for New Hampshire Independence because I believe in this topic so much. That organization's mission is to educate citizens on the benefits of the live free or die state, peacefully declaring its independence and separating from the federal government of the United States. So when this topic comes up in the news, I pay attention. And when things get really serious on some of these fronts, I can't wait to bring that information to you. This is one of those weeks. Firstly, a group of Republican lawmakers in South Carolina introduced a bill that would allow the state to secede from the United States if the federal government violated the Second Amendment in any way. The measure, which was referred to the South Carolina State House Judiciary Committee on April the 5th, would open the possibility of the state seceding from the U.S. if the federal government were to violate the Second Amendment. The bill states, "The General Assembly shall convene to consider whether to secede from the United States based upon the federal government's unconstitutional violation of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, if the federal government confiscates legally purchased firearms in the state." Now, while this bill will likely never pass, it just goes to show that secession is in the minds of the people, including legislators, and it's no longer looked at as a nuclear option. It seems to be a much more conventional option than it was even a decade ago. I believe this can be directly attributed to Brexit and the peaceful secession that it will eventually bring about. Interestingly, South Carolina became the first state to secede from the Union in the lead-up to the Civil War, withdrawing in 1860. But some of the most active secession movements in this country has been in California lately. There are all sorts of secession movements there, from one trying to separate the entire state from the U.S., to some that want to break up different bits and pieces to split from California, but to still become their own states in the United States. It's the breakup of California that's gaining the most steam at this point. According to CBS San Francisco, California voters may soon be asked to decide whether their state is too big and should be broken into 3 separate states. Venture capitalist Tim Draper, who pushed for a 6th-state proposal, now has a 3-state proposal called Cal 3, which seeks to split the state into 3 different states. Draper did not have enough signatures to get his 6-state measure on the California ballot in 2016, but for this new proposal, he needed 366,000 signatures. On Thursday, he announced that he has more than 600,000 signatures. Draper said, "I'm proud to announce we've collected more than enough signatures to qualify for the 2018 ballot. If the proposal passes, the Bay Area, along with counties north of Merced, would be considered as Northern California. Along the coast from Monterey to Los Angeles would be California, and the counties to the east would be Southern California. The population of each new state would range from 13.9 million people in Southern Cal, 13.9 million in Northern Cal, and 12.3 million in California. The 3 new states would still be among the top 10 most populous in the country. That just tells you how big California really is. Even if this were to pass, the voters of California, which is a long shot, it would all have to be approved by the U.S. Congress, of course, who might not be so eager to dilute their own power by creating 4 new U.S. senators for the West Coast. No one can claim that California is not too large and too diverse for people to be represented appropriately. Hell, the exact same thing can be said for the United States, or any state within it for that matter. Even New Hampshire, a small, low-populated state, has major differences in the types of people in the various regions of the state. So on this tax week, and every day, remember that government is force, taxation is theft, and secession is the answer. Not just secession from an existing state, not just secession from a country, but secession for the individual. Until we have the right to secede as an individual, we are not free.
Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
It's time to shake up your podcast feed, folks, by subscribing to Lions of Liberty, the only libertarian variety show out there. Spend Mondays with me, Mark Claire, as I feature in-depth interviews with great names in the libertarian community and fun roundtable discussions.
Electric Liberty Land with me, Brian McWilliams, every Wednesday, your weekly dose of comedy, culture, and liberty.
And Felony Fridays with me, John Odermatt, where I expose injustice in the broken criminal justice system.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and at lionsofliberty.com.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In voluntary charity news, Ripple, the cryptocurrency company, spent $29 million to fund every single classroom request on DonorsChoose.org. There were more than 35,600 requests from 28,200 public school teachers in every state on the crowdfunding website DonorsChoose.org until now. This gift represents the largest donation received by DonorsChoose.org in its 18-year history, according to a news release. The release said, quote, Ripple and its executives contributed the donation in XRP, which was converted to U.S. dollars and used to purchase the classroom materials. The Ripple team's donation provided the ultimate culmination of #BestSchoolDay, a campaign launched in March 2016 when 58 athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists funded classroom requests in cities and states covered just under half of the country. For a limited time, as teachers generate new classroom project requests on the site, DonorsChoose.org will offer donors the option of giving to the #BestSchoolDay Fund, which will be used to support projects from teachers creating their first requests on the site. DonorsChoose.org estimates that teachers will submit at least another 135,000 classroom project requests between now and the start of the next school year. Now, this is true charity, folks. Charity taken at the point of a gun is not charity. It's violence. It is force. The definition of charity is the voluntary giving of help to those in need. The key word is voluntary. As Penn Jillette said, it's amazing to me how many people think that voting to have the government give poor people money is compassion. Helping poor people and suffering people is compassion. Voting for our government to use guns to give money to help poor and suffering people is immoral, self-righteous, bullying laziness. People need to be fed, medicated, educated, clothed, and sheltered. And if we're compassionate, we'll help them. but you get no moral credit for forcing other people to do what you think is right. There is great joy in helping people, but no joy in doing it at gunpoint. I couldn't have said it better myself, Ben. In You Don't Own Your Home news, a federal judge in St. Louis ruled yesterday that Carl and Janice Duffner can be forced to plant turf grass in their yard, even though Janice Duffner has severe grass allergies. If the Duffners fail to plant the grass, under the ruling, the city of St. Peter's can sock them with fines that have potentially grown to well over $200,000, or even have them sent to prison for several decades. David Rowland of the Freedom Center of Missouri, who is representing the Duffners, said the ordinance is so absurd and the possible punishment so over the top, the case could ultimately end up with the U.S. Supreme Court. Suffice it to say, he's appealing. Rowland says, "It is so outrageous. This is a couple with health problems facing gross penalties for what they've chosen not to plant on their own personal property. If ever there was a circumstance where the court should intervene, it should be these facts." St. Peter's passed an ordinance in the last decade requiring that homeowners cover at least 50% of their yard areas with turf grass. And that was a problem for the Duffners, who've owned their home in the well-heeled St. Louis suburb since 2002. And upon moving in, had planted a lush flower garden that contains no turf grass, though it does still have other ground covers. In May of 2014, the Duffners got a letter from the city saying their yard was not in compliance. The couple applied for a variance, and in July of 2014 they were granted one. However, it didn't give them a free pass. It still required them to plant at least 5% turf grass. Absent that, the St. Peter's ordinances suggested they would face fines of at least $10 a day and potentially much, much more. The couple refused, and that September they filed a lawsuit. The litigation has taken a long and torturous route, as most of them do. After the Duffners filed in state court, an adverse ruling sent them to the appeals court, where they earned a partial victory. But the ruling sent the case back to the lower court. The Duffners chose to instead file in federal court in 2016. Last week, U.S. District Court Judge John A. Ross issued a ruling that was mostly in favor of the city, of course. He found that even if the facts as presented by the Duffners were true, it wasn't enough to win the case. And with that, he granted summary judgment for St. Peter's. Rowland said, "My estimation is that this is one of the most important property rights cases in the country right now. We're going to go all hands on deck." Rather than prohibiting certain plants that might be harmful, Rowland notes St. Peter's ordinance instead forces homeowners to proactively plant others. Rowland said it's a huge leap conceptually, and that's why it's so dangerous. By this principle, a city could require you to put in a swimming pool and pay to maintain it. That's the same thing we're talking about here. The courts have long found that people have the right to use their personal property in a lawful, harmless way, and have the right to exclude things from their property they don't want there. Folks, this is just egregious, and more proof that you don't own the property that you pay for yourself. We are all serfs. They're slaves, for lack of a better term, and will be forced at gunpoint to do as they say. I wish the Duffners all the best in this fight. They are going to need it, for sure. One cryptocurrency project that I'm most excited about right now is ZenCash, with privacy, anonymity, and security done right. You can read all about ZenCash at thelavaflow.com/zen. Now look, I've read a ton of white papers on crypto, and this is the first one I've read that mentioned voluntary and voluntarist not once but 7 times. These are our people, and they are on the right track to mix great technology, excellent marketing, and awesome uses for their product. These guys get it, and they understand what crypto is all about. Now, this is a project, guys, that I believe in 100%. So much so that I have staked some of my own Zen to run a secure node on their network. So don't miss out on checking out this awesome project at thelavaflow.com/zen. In some justice news, in Gloucester Township, New Jersey, a police officer was charged with simple assault after he struck a 13-year-old girl while handcuffing her, according to the Camden County Prosecutor's Office. John Flynn, 27, and other officers were dispatched to investigate a disturbance on March 8th and encountered the girl. Flynn can be seen hitting the girl twice on the side of her face in footage from a responding officer's body-worn camera. The prosecutor's office said the girl was struck while complying with police instructions. The girl was taken to a local hospital for evaluation, and no criminal charges were filed against her, according to a release from the prosecutor's office. Gloucester Township Police Chief Harry Earle suspended Flynn following the incident and notified the Camden County Prosecutor's Office of his alleged misconduct. So the cop is suspended and facing charges. He should have been fired outright. I imagine that if he's found not guilty of these charges, he'll be unsuspended from his job and allowed back on the street to offend again as a law enforcement officer. We can only hope that he's found guilty of these charges, and based on watching the video of these actions, this guy is a violent thug who should not be in any position of authority. In I Can't Make This Shit Up news, 8 Argentine police officers have been dismissed from their duties because they blamed mice on missing drug evidence. Investigators discovered 1,191 pounds of marijuana missing from a police warehouse in Pilar, northwest of Buenos Aires. The city's former police commissioner, Javier Specchia, and fellow officers told a judge the drugs were eaten by mice. I shit you not. Forensic experts doubted mice would see the drugs as food and would have probably died if they had eaten it. A spokesperson for Judge Adrian Gonzalez Charvet said that, according to experts at Buenos Aires University, quote, mice wouldn't mistake the drug for food. And even if they did, quote, a lot of corpses would have been found in the warehouse. The police officers will now testify in front of the judge on May 4th. The court will decide if the drugs are missing due to expedience or negligence. I swear, guys, I just can't make this shit up. I love when I find stories like this. Reality is so much more entertaining than satire, in my opinion. The fact that these officers thought they could get away with using the dog ate my homework as an excuse is just laughable. And to make it worse, they actually thought people would believe that mice ate 1,200 pounds of cannabis. Clearly, there is no IQ test required to be a cop in Argentina. Are you looking for a way to protect your online presence quickly, easily, and inexpensively while still surfing the net with high speed? Well, NordVPN is the best way that I've ever found to do just that. With over 2,500 servers worldwide, they cover every continent except Antarctica. But, as they say, that's only because penguins just don't get the internet. They also offer double data encryption, which encrypts data not once, but twice. And they never log what you do and where you go on the internet. Also, NordVPN is fast, the fastest VPN service that I've ever used. They have apps for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android, so you can protect all of your traffic from all of your devices with NordVPN. Starting as low as $3.29 per month, they're also inexpensive, and they take Bitcoin too. With NordVPN, you can securely access any website from anywhere around the world, safely share files via P2P networks, and enjoy the fastest VPN experience without compromising your online security and privacy. Get signed up for the VPN service that I personally use every time I hit the internet at thelavaflow.com/VPN. Again, that's thelavaflow.com/VPN. In no longer hiding it news, the Dictators Club, more commonly known as the United Nations, has a new board game aimed at brainwashing your children into believing in total government, among other evils. By the UN's own admission, the scheme is intended to enlist youth from all over the world in imposing the so-called Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, on the people and the planet. In short, that would mean the end of all freedom. The SDGs, or UN Agenda 2030 as the scheme is often called, represents basically a roadmap to global totalitarianism. The radical agreement signed by Obama but never ratified by the U.S. Senate calls for a total restructuring of human society, leaving nobody behind. It demands government control over production and consumption, planetary socialism, global government, indoctrination of children, reorganization of the family, and so much more. And brainwashing children will be crucial to its success. Children and young women and men are critical agents of change and will find in the new goals a platform to channel their infinite capacities for activism into the creation of a better world, the agreement itself explains. In the game, it demanded in Goal 4 that all children be brainwashed into the UN's anti-freedom agenda by receiving a, quote, quality education. And of course, that's going to be at a government indoctrination center. The tax-funded UN board game hopes to help move that all along as quickly as possible. The website for the game says, intended primarily for children aged 8 to 10, the game aims to help children understand the goals, how they impact their lives, and how they can help achieve them, without ever asking whether the goals are desirable. Indeed, rather than teaching children how to think, the game seeks to teach the children what to think. And in the game, the indoctrination into demonstrable lies and blatant totalitarianism is clear. For example, on goal number 10 of the game, which calls for national and international wealth redistribution, the UN board game has a highly misleading question and answer. What's the best way to fight poverty? Asks the game card. The correct answer, according to the UN, is global Marxism. Share the wealth produced in the world, it says. Of course, if that were true, then Cuba, North Korea, and Zimbabwe would all be among the richest nations in the world rather than the poorest and most miserable. In official documents and reports, the UN boasts of using games to target the metacognitive activities of children, and it brags that some 85% of those targeted agreed that they would change their behavior to be in line with the UN's objectives. Not only is it brainwashing, but it's working. The UN Development Program report even celebrates the use of games to facilitate behavior change, and that's a direct quote. The UN is coming for the minds, hearts, and souls of your children, and they're using every avenue available to do it, including government schools, Hollywood propaganda, and even board games now. The best defense is to get your kids out of government indoctrination centers. I would guarantee that your kids would never hear of this game outside of these indoctrination centers.
Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support.
This is Chris Spangle, and I am the host of We Are Libertarians, which you can find in iTunes, Google Play, or at wearelibertarians.com. We are a podcast that brings you all of the irreverence that modern politics deserves by examining current events from a libertarian perspective. So please, check us out at wearelibertarians.com.
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Well, we're going, we don't need roads.
What happens when you go through all of the legal channels to build a road to your business and you're told no at every turn? Do you just watch your business go down in flames, or do you do something about it? Well, if you're Eric White, you build the road yourself. He's building what appears to be his own off-ramp on a New York highway that leads to his business. Eric White is a member of the Seneca Indian tribe and owns the Big Indian Smoke Shop in Irving. He's reportedly building the ramp as part of a personal protest after losing a legal battle with the state of New York over allegedly selling untaxed cigarettes. The Federal Highway Administration says it's looking into the matter. A spokesperson says the agency typically needs to approve any new ramps to an interstate, but is not sure how the policy applies to tribal land. White has not yet commented on the issue, but his attorney, Paul Cambria, said, Mr. White believes there is no valid easement that the Thruway has over sovereign territory. The Seneca Nation has long expressed the same feeling. However, it made clear it does not support or condone any efforts by White to construct an exit from the Thruway to a smoke shop, which also sells tax-free gasoline, if that is indeed what his plan is. The statement by the Seneca Nation said, while we're aware of the activity being undertaken by an individual on the Catarangas territory, the Seneca Nation has no role whatsoever in what is taking place. Although we know the reason for his actions, we look for a safe resolution addressing the situation. Now, does that tell you something? If anyone in this country knows about the history of violence perpetrated by the government of the United States, it is the Native Americans. And this tribe seems to be concerned for the safety of White because of his actions. Through a spokesperson, the New York State Thruway Authority stated, the safety of motorists is paramount, and we're looking into the matter to ensure the work does not interfere with the operation of the Thruway. Of course, the authorities are going to assert their authority. I am expecting this to end up as a violent confrontation before this is over with, and White is maintaining a silence, and he's essentially daring the state of New York to do something about it. I don't see him backing down on this at all. He's doing this as a protest. One Seneca tribe member put it this way. It could be cigarettes today. It was beaver pelts 300 years ago. What we have to defend is the principle that the state of New York has no authority to reach into our nation. Which brings us back to White, who recently lost a court ruling ordering him to pay $2.4 million in fines over untaxed cigarettes, according to WGRV. White had claimed that the sale and transportation of the cigarettes was legal, despite their not having a tax stamp because they were native brands being shipped from one reservation to another in the state. He also claimed the state police illegally searched the truck. White also argued that the fines levied were 3.5 times what the cigarettes were worth, a total so grossly disproportionate to their value that it would be considered excessive under the Eighth Amendment. The administrative law judge rejected each argument in upholding the state's claim in a 50-page decision. White plans to appeal that decision, according to his attorney Paul Cambria, who also represents White as a principal plaintiff in a lawsuit challenging the state's right to impose taxes of any sort on native territories. Cambria tells us this case White has against the state regarding the collection of taxes for any purpose on native territories will be argued before New York's highest court, the State Court of Appeals, on April 28th. According to Cambria, should the court rule in White's favor, it would also absolve him of the fines he faces in the other case. So here's a guy who's been screwed over at every turn by the government, and he is protesting those illegal and immoral actions. Good for him. He has my blessing and my 100% support. My only hope is that this does not end violently, but I'm afraid that it's going to. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite director, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on the show, go to thelavaflow.com/88. I've got a couple of new supporters this week. DT pledged $2.50 per episode using Patreon. DT, thank you so much. You rock. I also received a one-time payment from Ryan W. Ryan, thank you so much. Thanks to DT, Ryan, and all of my other awesome supporters, I am at $259 per episode, or 51.8% of the way towards my next goal of $500. Thank you for all your support, guys. And remember, when I hit this next goal, I'm going to be upping the content I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you. So add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting right now. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon or Bitcoin through Coinbase. I want to be able to bring you more content very soon, so please make sure to add your pledge today to help make that happen. I don't have any new Apple Podcast reviews this week, but if you have a minute and you want to hear your review read right here on the show, please go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it. Thank you to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.